Welcome to Lowcountry View of Hilton Head. My name is Earl Yates. Of course, I'm your host. Today we'll have the second part of a series that we've started about a month ago. Of course, my guest here, Joella Edwards, will speak a little bit about her growing up in Hawaii, trials and tribulations that she had there, and one of the small focuses that we'll put on it is the fact that one of her classmates at the time of growing up was our president, Mr. Barack Obama. So let's start here. When we left off the first time, of course, we spoke briefly about you growing up, left off about high school.
Right.
Now, of course, I have the pleasure of knowing, your family, your mom, your dad, and your kids.
My kids.
So let's start right there. I mean, you can give us a brief little stint about, being an older teenager and having life there, but basically let us know how it is to be a mom.
To be a mom. Oh, wow. Well, I have 3 children.
Yes.
Ella, who's 27 now,
Yes.
makes me feel old, and my 21-year-old son Lee, who is a sophomore at Savannah State University, and my little one John, who's 13. And actually, for me, being a mom is, I used to think that being a mom, because of the journey that I had to go through in my life, and I used to always say with my kids, well, I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom, because I tried so many things growing up, because I had a whole lot of hopes and dreams when I was younger, and they got crushed along the way. Every time I had a dream or a hope or I'd try something, somebody would crush it. And because of all the things that I went through when I was young, every time somebody would tell me I couldn't do something, or that's not for you, or girls don't do that, or you can't, anything at all, I would always stop doing it. I would try to do it, and I'd say, I'd go to school for it, I'd try to do something. But yet with my kids, I said, well, I'm just a mom. And my kids would get on me and they said, but you're not just a mom, you're a really good mom. Because I'm a single mother. I take care of my kids, by myself, with the help, I should say, of my family and friends. But I actually, now that my kids are older, I was a really good mom. I still am, because I have a 13-year-old, but I'm a really good mom. I raised some amazing kids, but then I have some really good kids that I was able to raise. So I was very fortunate.
Well, for those viewers who hadn't seen the first part, of course, now we have it on YouTube and everything. You can go check it out. But basically, you told about your story, of course, growing up in Hawaii. And of course, they're having so many things that you could do. And one of the things you instilled in your kids is, give an axe to the boredism thing, because there's so much you can do.
That's a word that's not allowed in our house, bored. And I tell my kids that because when I was younger, well, growing up in Hawaii, first of all, nobody back then had cable and all these things, but really in Hawaii, we had nothing. I mean, we had TV till maybe 11 o'clock at night, and the one time a year, the Jerry Lewis Telethon, that would be 24 hours, we'd stay up and make tents and everything. And we'd hike and we'd swim and we'd horseback ride and fish. I mean, there's so many things to do on the island. Even though you're on an island, you had to find things to do. We didn't have Disney World and Disney, we don't have any of that in Hawaii. So we had, we made do with what my brother and I, we used to find these little, it was like clay, and we would, pick it up and make things out of it, and it was gross, it was disgusting, but it was fun. We'd go swim to the other side of the marina and get clams, these little teeny weeny little clams, and we'd put them on the hibachi, and just anything that we could find for kids to do. So I told my kids, as they were growing up, I would always do things with them. There's always something to do, and whether it was something cultural, where we'd go watch something that had to do with anybody else's culture. It could be, if it was, say, Chinese New Year, and we could go see something that had to do with Chinese New Year. Or if it was a parade that was, say, for one of the Hawaiian royalty, because Hawaii was run by a monarchy way back in the day. So we still celebrate days like that. We have more holidays in Hawaii than any state in the United States of America, because we celebrate, King Kamehameha Day, and we celebrate Kuhio Day. And those are things that my kids grew up with. My kids got to grow up with a lot of culture and a lot of, understanding of different cultures, different things, having fun, celebrating Girls' Day and Boys' Day. Oh my goodness, we moved to the mainland. And my kids, when it came time for Girls' Day, my daughter was like, well, Mom, what do I get? It's Girls' Day. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But they don't celebrate that over here. And like I said before, that's one of the things that is so different and unique about Hawaii, is the fact that you do get to celebrate everybody's, culture, and it makes it more fun and fascinating. And the kids had so much fun getting to do it. So, I wish more people would, just pay attention to other people's cultures, and you can learn so much from it.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the things that we captured in our first interview was basically the small amount of strife that you carried with you, because you said most of it you kind of shed, wore it on your shoulder, and of course as you became older it was more of a prideful thing, where in Hawaii, you know, you have so much of that. It's a basis of everyone is searching for the same identity. Now you look at Hilton Head for an example.
Right.
30 years ago in Hilton Head, there was almost no relation to how it is now, because the culture there, just like the Hawaiian culture would have been in Hawaii, the Gullah culture was here, where this was Gullah country. You know, most people don't even understand, like, even like Harbor Town, of course, was not always there. Not only was Harbor Town not always there, you know, the deep water that's in that comes from them dredging Harbor Town wasn't there. And I hear stories of actually taking horse and buggy from Hilton Head to Defusky. And that's how I have family here.
Wow.
But so I can understand and I can relate when you say that. But now the time difference that went from you growing up and the things you went through to now you're a mother and your kids are experiencing that, did you see much of a letdown in things as far as racial profiling and things like that in Hawaii?
You mean for my children?
For your children.
No, actually, you know, I think one of the things that people need to really remember and think about is, you know, back in the 60s when I was growing up, you know, we moved to Hawaii in 1964. You know, I was 5 years old. And, you know, growing up in a place that had just become a state, Hawaii just became a state in 1959, which is really, really young. And Hawaii was just developing, so a lot of things were just starting. And, you know, a lot of our parents, a lot of, you know, my peers, parents, and a lot of other people that had lived in Hawaii were actually a lot of pioneers in, you know, the development of the state and what it is now today. Because really, I tell people a lot that I started out a country girl and I ended up a city girl, because it was like living in the country when I was young. I remember my parents would say, okay, we're gonna go to Ewa Beach. Now, Ewa Beach in Hawaii is maybe, well, depending on traffic, it could be, you know, a 45-minute ride from Hawaii Kai where we lived. But as a little girl, that was a lifetime, because we didn't have the big highways and, you know, the H3s and the H2s. It wasn't built that way back then. So you kind of had to go around and take the long way. So it was a little different. And now it's grown into this metropolitan city that is just amazing, you know, but we all got to be a part of that change that was coming, you know, that was happening in Hawaii. We got to be a part of that change. So we know what change is about. We know what change is because we lived through it. You know, we lived through so many things being different and changing, that when the one thing I looked for with, especially for my daughter, because, you know, I have my one girl, and I said, okay, I just wanted one girl. And part of my reason was because of what I went through as a child. And I was really scared for my daughter that she would have to go through that same thing, which is one of the reasons why I chose not to send her to Punahou. You know, I wanted to send her there, but at the same time I said, no, I didn't want her to have to go through the same thing. So I sent her to an all-girls school. I chose, you know, after looking around, I chose to send her to an all-girls school. And then with my boys, once again, I started to send them there, but I said, no, maybe, you know, let's try something different, because just in case, which I'm glad for the decisions that I made, but I think by the time my children were old enough to be in school, that Hawaii had learned how to tolerate. And, you know, everybody had learned, because everybody back in the 60s was trying to get into their own skin and then trying to learn how to live together. You know, the mainland is so black and white, and, you know, Hawaii's not like that. Hawaii can't be like that. We don't have space for it. So, you know, when you're growing and everybody was growing up, it was difficult. But by the time my kids, I think it was a lot easier. And they didn't have the troubles that I had. But then again, I taught them how to be a little bit different. I taught them how to, you know,
of course you have
assert
to.
themselves a little bit more as far as verbally when something goes wrong, you know, in a different way, so that they wouldn't have to go through some of those things.
Well, you know, I think, and we've spoke so many times, and one of the things that I'm happy to say is I can actually relate living to Hilton Head in some standard the same way, because now you have the Cross Island Expressway, which by no way or means is the same as the big highway they have in Hawaii.
It's very similar.
It's the same thing, which most people see the convenience of it now and don't understand that, you know, Hilton Head at one time, 278 was a 2-lane highway that you could run across without looking both ways. And if you did hear a horn blowing, it was probably because someone had their hand out waving at you, going, hey, what's going on? Or it's telling you, hey, you know? So it's understandable. And growing up in the island, I think it wasn't to the extreme of Hawaii, but Hilton Head what it did offer is we were away from the mainland.
Right.
And there was a period of time where Hilton Head was a separate place completely from even Bluffton. You know, where, you know, to get over there was a chore.
Right.
So of course, if you know, you had to wait for a boat, either have a boat or either plan that vacation, of course, you know, it's going to be a complete different thing.
Yep.
And kids grew up on Hilton Head not knowing much about the mainland.
The mainland, which is what I love about Hilton Head, though,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
fantastic.
connection to Hawaii. Because Hilton Head has, it just so reminds me of back home.
It's special.
Except for I
It's
can drive
special.
across that bridge, and Savannah's 45 minutes away.
Absolutely.
But I do remember what you're talking about, because when I was, you know, as I was growing up in Hawaii, and to take vacations back over here, being that my mother is from Savannah.
Yeah.
We were able to come, and that was, you know, when they'd say, "Oh, we're going to Hilton Head,"
Well,
we'd be, "Oh."
well, I know we have more time. We got about 11 minutes left on the other side. This has been the first half of our show. Of course, my guest is Joella Edwards, and we're having a great time talking. I'm hoping that you're enjoying it as much as I am. We're going to take a short break, and we'll see you in just a bit.